Dancing competition has been an important part of Akwara village culture. In the village of Akwara, dancing competition has always been a fair and square competition open to all. It was also an opportunity for elevation of social status. The winner of each dancing competition gets married into the royal family. In the village of Akwara, there lived a young lady named Oma. Oma was the only child of her mother. She was a very pretty lady, fair with slender waist and round hips. She was known as the village champion in terms of dancing. Each time it was time to dance at the village square, she was always ready to dance. She would dance and dance without getting tired. She would always dance like she was possessed by the spirit of dance. Mama had a half-sister named Uma. Uma was a very pretty lady too. She was dark-skinned with round eyes and hips. Unlike Oma that was proud, loud, she was a very quiet lady. Oma's mother was the first wife of her father. She was a very troublesome and unnecessarily rude. She was always involved in one trouble or the other. Oma's father married her due to family connections. They were betrothed to each other at a very young age. Oma's father, being a peaceful man, was tired of her troubles, so he decided to get himself another wife. That was when he married Obiageli, Oma's mother. Obiageli was a very pretty lady. Unlike Ufuma, Oma's mother, she was very humble, rarely gets into trouble, and very calm. Obinna, her husband, loved her more than the first wife, thereby stimulating jealousy and hatred from Ufuma towards Obiageli. Obinna always felt at peace each time he was with Obiageli. He was a very sweet person, very loving and caring. Ufuma, on the other hand, was always stressing her husband. She was always angry and nagging. It was 2 weeks to the great ceremony that happens in Akwara village. It was time for the prince to select a new wife. The maidens of the village were practicing hard at the village square. Who will be the lucky one? They all wondered. The competition has always been a fair and square one. Mama has been so full of herself. At the moment, she was the best dancer, and a lot of people speculated that she would win the competition. Every evening during their dance practice, Mama always takes the lead. Once the drum goes off, she will start dancing, swinging her waist and hips graciously. Even when others were tired, she was never tired. She danced tirelessly and gracefully. A night before the great competition, Mama sat with her mother under the moonlight, admiring the stars. Mama placed her head on her mother's shoulder as her mother caressed her hair. They admired the stars in utter silence. Her mother broke the silence, looked at her and said, "You should have participated in the dancing rehearsal." Mama looked at her mother, heaved a big sigh and said, "I know, right? I should have participated." She sighed again. "It's all past now. I don't want to attract attention to myself." Mama was a very good dancer. She could even dance more than Oma, her half-sister. Despite being a gifted child, Mama has always hated unnecessary attention. She believed that too much attention would always attract jealousy and hatred from people. So she tried everything in her power to avoid any form of attention. Mama was confident in herself. She believed that she would definitely win the competition tomorrow, even though she didn't practice. The D-Day finally arrived. Fuma dressed up her daughter. When they arrived at the venue, she continued singing praises of her daughter, speaking of how she couldn't wait for the competition to begin and end. As the competition was about to commence, Obiageli and her daughter, Mma, arrived. As all the maidens marched forward to start dancing, other competitors were shocked to see Mma because she didn't come for the practice. Mma, on the other hand, kept calm. She didn't say a word. As soon as the whistle was blown and the drummers kicked off the occasion, Mma swung into action. She danced gracefully, Her steps were easy, yet elegant and graceful. All eyes were on Uma as she danced. Uma couldn't believe her eyes. All attention shifted from Uma to Uma. Even the prince couldn't take his eyes off Uma. He fell in love with her instantly. At the end of the competition, Uma was declared the winner. Uma cried all the way home. She couldn't believe what just happened. She felt like someone that had been robbed in broad daylight. She wept and wept. Obiageli, on the other hand, hugged her daughter tightly. "I'm so proud of you," she said, as tears of joy rolled down her eyes. Obinna also hugged and congratulated his daughter. The next day, the royal palace sent a messenger that brought the royal decree. In the decree, Uma was made the princess as she was to marry the prince. Uma was extremely happy. Even her father couldn't contain his excitement. Uma, on the other hand, couldn't believe what just happened. She cried and cried. She even refused to eat. As the wedding preparation started, the prince was always visiting Uma. They would stroll around the village giggling and laughing. The villagers were genuinely happy for them and would always hail and greet them. The D-Day finally arrived, the day of Uma's marriage ceremony with the prince. Uma's mother had watched her daughter cry for days because of her failure at the competition. She had comforted her all to no avail. Uma just wouldn't stop crying. Even Obinna, her father, tried to comfort her too, but it just wasn't working. On the day of the wedding, Oma surprisingly cleaned all her tears and started preparing for the royal wedding. As she hasn't eaten for days, she was extremely hungry and checked her mother's kitchen for food. She couldn't find any. Then she went to Obegeli's hut. Without even thinking twice, she devoured the plate of food she saw at Obegeli's hut. The food was prepared for the bride, but she didn't even care, nor did she apologize. She just left the hut and went back to her hut to prepare for the royal wedding. Thankfully, the marriage ceremony was a success. It was a glamorous wedding ceremony. According to culture, Uma was escorted to her husband's house that night by young maidens. Uma was welcomed warmly at the royal palace. She was ushered into her chambers. The prince paid her a visit that night and they consummated their wedding. It was such a memorable night for her. Next morning, she received a very bad news that Oma was dead. How? How could that have happened? She asked. Back in her father's compound, almost the whole village gathered around Ufuma. Ufuma, Oma's mother, was rolling and weeping. "I killed my daughter," she cried. People were surprised and shocked at the sudden statement. They thought she was just trying to blame herself, but she continued weeping and lamenting the same thing. When she was questioned further by the village elders, it turned out that she poisoned Uma's food, but unfortunately, Uma consumed the food without her knowledge. It turned out that the poison was meant to take effect after 10 hours. Her plan was for Uma to die at the royal palace. That way, she or her daughter won't be suspected. The whole villagers shouted after listening to her confession. They couldn't believe what they just heard, but it was a good thing that her plans backfired back at her. Ufuma was banished from the village after her confession. According to the elders, she committed an abomination.